All right. So, we talk a lot about negotiating, and we talk a lot about proposition values. We've talked so much about it, especially when we are presenting buyer broker agreements to potential buyers, and what proposition value do you bring to the table? And the one that I always emphasize is my ability to negotiate. And I do tell my buyers, listen, you don't need to like me, you don't need to want to talk to me, but when it comes down to getting the best terms and the best deal, I can guarantee you want me because I know how to negotiate. Now, a lot of agents will say that to their buyers, but don't follow up with it, because what the buyer really wants to know, and if you really want to, put yourself over the top, explain your negotiating strategies. And so one of them is, how do we negotiate with the listing agent? It is, for me, it is a system. And so that's what I'm going to share with everybody today. So obviously the steps to negotiating, Nick, you got to be prepared. We're going to talk about preparing for submitting an offer. There's the bargaining aspect, finding, the wins and the losses for people, and finding that path to where everybody can get together and agree. And then there's the closing of the negotiating process, and then learning from the experience. All right, so 3 negotiating elements. It's the who. Who is involved? And that's important. Obviously, your buyer's involved. Who is the other agent? Who is the seller? Who are the decision-making people inside this transaction? And so you have to clearly identify the who, and obviously the what. The what is not only the property, but what are the terms that everybody's looking for? What's important to the buyer? What's important to the seller? And then the how is how we do it.
Yeah, and I think making sure that your preparation is key here, knowing what is important to your client, being very clear what is important to your client is really, really the number one thing, because you could be negotiating for something you think is important to your client, and at the end of the day, you're completely off base. So making sure that you're clear on that is really important.
All right, so here's some of the things that I do before I even write up an offer. My buyer says, yes, Mike, I like this house, and I want to make an offer on the house. So it is time for us to prepare. It's time for us to do our preparation. So the first thing I look at is the other agent. I'm amazed that a lot of agents don't do any homework or don't do research on other agents. How many times have I sent you an email? Hey, what's the production level of this agent? And so forth. I want to know everything that I can about the agent. I want to know what their experience level is. I want to know how many years they've been in the industry. But the number of transactions is probably most important. I know agents that have been in this business for 20 years, and they've done 12 transactions in 20 years. Mm-hmm. And I have agents on my team that in the first 12 months they do 12 transactions. So, experience, I think, is key. I will go and I will take a look at them on the MLS, see how many transactions that they've had. I might do a little bit of snooping on social media, but I need to know, because at the end of the day, I'm never communicating with the seller. I'm communicating with the seller through that listing agent, and there's a big difference on how I approach things if the agent is new to the business or little experience, as opposed to a seasoned vet. Brokerage will tell me a little bit. Are they on a team? Because you could be dealing with a new agent on a very strong team, and you may not. That may offer a little bit more challenges for you. I take a look at the seller. I go into Monsoon and take a look at who the seller is, and I don't know whether I should be advertising this, but I do. I forewarn them. Okay, they got a recent bankruptcy? Are they in a situation where they might be a little bit desperate? I might go on county records and take a look at if are they in default? Are they behind on their payments? I want to know what I can about that situation. And then I also want to know a little bit about the house. How much did the seller buy the house for? How long have they had it? And I'm really looking for their equity position. And I understand tax records doesn't necessarily always tell the entire story. There always can be liens and things that aren't showing up in tax records, but I got a decent position or a decent understanding. If I got a seller that has $200,000 worth of equity, I might have a more of a negotiating, I might be a little bit more aggressive as opposed to somebody who might be just breaking even or having to come to the table and cutting a check.
Luck favors the prepared. I mean, this is the number one thing here, and it might seem a little overzealous what Mike is doing, but you're a professional realtor. Your job is to present and represent your client as best as you can, and you nailed it on the head. It has nothing to do with the seller. You're dealing with the listing agent, so you need to know as much information as you possibly can going to that transaction. It's a weird analogy, but we watch a lot of football. Every Sunday, we watch multiple football games. The people commentating on that football game, they spend Monday to Saturday preparing to talk about those two teams, the players, the coaches, the strategies. That's what agents should be doing when they prep to go into a transaction. You're not just writing a contract hoping it's going to be accepted. You need to be doing your homework so that you're putting your client's interest up front.
And I want to just remind everybody or clarify, everything that I'm explaining to everybody right now, I'm explaining this to my buyer during my buyer consult.
Sure.
I want them to understand what I am doing behind the scenes. Now, agents might be watching this and go, well, I do a lot of that. But have you ever really sat down and articulated your process and your system to your buyers so that they walk away and go, man?
And it's all marketing. If you're not saying this in an eloquent way that your buyers understand it, you're not marketing your business correctly. And I think that's where a lot of agents fall down. Because you're right, Mikey. I think a lot of people do a lot of this, but if you're not explaining that in a value proposition to your client, they're not going to understand it.
All right. So I do all of this before I ever reach out and connect with the agent, because if I don't know some of this stuff and I get on the phone with that listing agent, I'm flying blind now because this information right here tells me a lot of who I'm getting on the phone with. Unless that agent refuses to call back and refuses to answer the phone, I would never, ever, ever submit a contract without trying to reach the agent. As a listing agent myself, that's one of the worst things is when I get offers and I don't even know where they came from. I don't even know who the agent is. He's never reached out to me. It tells me a little bit about his professionalism, because on the listing side, I want to have this dialogue as well. So I will call the agent, and we use on our team, we call it the double tap method. If I call you and you don't answer your phone, I hang up, I don't leave a message, I call you right back. Because people tend to go, boy, this is an important phone call. The amount of people I get to pick up the phone on the second attempt.
Well, so quick fact, your iPhone has an option that says if you're on DND, but someone calls you back to back like that, it will jump over those DND settings and it will have the phone ring directly it'll actually have the phone ring. So that is a way to jump over anyone whose phone's on DND. FYI.
All right, so remember back to the 3-pack, creative subject line. So I'll leave a short message. I'm not going to leave them a long message because,
again, no one's going
to listen to the entire long message. I get straight to the point. And can I just give us a little side tip? When you are leaving a message and you're leaving your phone number, leave your phone number twice. I always repeat because sometimes people go through the phone number so fast, I can't get all 7 numbers. And sometimes the first time they say their phone number, it cuts out a little bit. If I leave a message for you, I know this is my phone number is 602 da-da-da-da. Again, that number is da-da-da-da-da. Free tip.
This is a generational thing, I think, because 99% of people are calling from their cell phone, and your cell phone's not necessarily blocked. I mean, I guess you block the number, you need to leave your number, but I don't know if there's a reason that you do need to leave your number. Now, I still do it every time I leave a message, but if you're talking to younger generational people, they're not going to leave their phone number because, in their opinion, you have it because I just called you from that number.
So what you're saying is I'm old.
I was trying to be as polite about that as I possibly could, but yes.
All right. Well, from this Gen Xer to all my other Gen Xer friends, we appreciate
I leave the message. I leave the number.
the strategy.
And I do it twice too. But
All right, but I'm going to leave a short message. So then I'm going to send a text, going back to
100%.
creative subject lines, and this is pretty simply a text that I'm going to send because again, the goal is to get the agent on the phone before I submit an offer. And so my text may look something like this. This is Mike from West USA. We're getting ready to write an offer on your listing at 123 Main Street. I just had a few clarifying questions before submitting when you have a moment. Okay, so one, the seller's interested because he might be getting an offer. Number two, they're thinking, boy, I wonder what those clarifying questions are. And I typically get a call pretty quick because people are going to respond to text messages a lot quicker than they are to. I still got voicemails that are 3 months old, pal, that I haven't gotten to.
yeah, and I think this, to me, is a very responsible, professional way of handling it. I do see agents who get very frustrated by listing agents not calling them back, but most of the time I would have, have to imagine they're not sending the text after the fact. It doesn't take that much time out of your day to call, leave a quick message, and then follow up with a text message. It doesn't make sense why you wouldn't do that. It's you're trying to do what's best for your client, not for your time. It takes 3 minutes to do this, maybe total.
All right. So then when I do get the agent on the phone, when they do finally answer, I'm immediately going to try to create value, explain the strength of my buyer. That's what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to find value for not only my buyer, but I'm trying to identify the value for the seller. And I'm going to look for the win-win. When you are negotiating, it always comes down to the win-win. For everybody involved. And if you don't believe it or if you don't understand what that means, you don't have kids because we learn about negotiating once those babies come out.
Yep.
They just come out of the womb ready to negotiate and so forth.
Yep.
But one of the things that I try to do, because I want to start off with the seller's desires in mind. And so some of my first questions is, hey, we are getting ready to write an offer on this. And you may have some specific questions, how old is the AC unit or whatever the case is. But I want to get into the seller's wants. I want them to know right off the bat that we're willing to negotiate and we're willing to accommodate. Whether we can do it or not, that's another thing, but I want them to have that feeling. So I want to identify what the seller's wants are. What is the most important thing to the seller? Is it price? Is it the escrow period? You cannot, I'm telling you can't submit an offer for a 30 or 40-day close of escrow without asking this question because maybe the seller needs 21 days and there's another offer that might be a little bit less, but they're doing 21 days, and you haven't even asked the question. And I know that Dwayne and our broker team they're not huge fans of post-possessions, but it is a reality. And I would say if you are going to do a post-possession scenario, talk to your broker, make sure you have all the forms and understand the process. Because I can't, because a lot of times post-possession language is not listed in the MLS. And I get on the phone with the agent and I'm identifying what's important to the seller. And then I'll mention post-possession. All of a sudden, they're like, yeah, actually, my seller would like to stay in the house for 14 days after the close of escrow. And yeah, you're the only one that's mentioned it. But yeah, that's something that's important. And a lot of times, in many cases, that's kind of given my buyer that, that added, leverage point. I explain, I'm very clear. And you can stop me at any time if you want to stop and comment on any of these points. I explain our inspection philosophy. I want to put them and the seller at ease. I am not committing my buyer to anything, but I'm explaining what our philosophy is. Our philosophy is not to nickel and dime. Our philosophy is we are looking for major structural issues, such as, roofing or AC or whatever the case is. You can expect that, my buyer is not going to nickel and dime you. I can't guarantee it, but, and so forth. And then I tell my buyer's story, where they're coming from, how qualified they are, and their They've got great income, and I've worked with them 5 times over the last 3 years, and they've closed on every single one of these. But I'm doing two things. I'm getting information that I need, and maybe I have some inside information knowing that they're behind on their payments for 30 or 60 days. And how I talk to this agent will depend on experience level. If I'm going up against somebody who's been in this business for a long time, I got to tread lightly. And I shouldn't say this, but Dwayne's not here. If I got an agent that has very little experience, I'm going to ask questions that they probably shouldn't give me answers to, but I just know their experience level.
Sure, and you learn and you live there. But I think you're doing a lot more than that. You're also building relationship with this agent that is about to walk through this process with you. And if you are, and it's not on here, and it should be needless to say, but I'm going to say it anyway. If you're nice and you're pleasant and you're respectful, and this other person on the phone, this listing agent on the phone hears that you are earnest and you're professional and you want to work together, then you're going to have a leg up over other offers that come through. The other thing that I would say on that list that you didn't ask up at the top was compensation. And I think that's important. You were asking questions about your buyer. You were having a conversation about your client. You weren't worried about the compensation. And I think right now, especially, most listing agent is going to assume that's the number one thing you're talking about. So I think that also brings a relief or a fresher breath air that you're really just trying to have a conversation about the transaction.
I would agree to disagree.
Okay.
Two things. One, I don't bring up, if I'm going to ask about compensation, I'm going to ask it at the very end, because this whole process is building rapport.
100%,
with
that's
the
what I'm saying,
agent.
yeah.
It's not going to be one of my first questions.
It shouldn't be, correct.
And second thing, most of the time, I'm honest with you, I don't even ask. I don't even care. I'm just sending over the seller commission addendum. That number is reflecting on what's my buyer broker agreement. But if I'm going to ask, or this conversation goes really, really well, then I definitely will ask, and we can have an open discussion. But if you just call, hey, I'm an agent, I'm thinking about writing an offer on this house, or thinking about showing this house, you offering compensation, that's a deal killer.
100. That's what I'm saying. I think
Yeah.
that's still what's being done right now, and that's not what should be happening.
All right. So the goal, again, one of the goals is to build rapport. So now I got to start asking the tough questions. The first slide was the easy question. The tough questions, Nick, do you currently have any offers on the table?
We just had one come through right before you called.
Yeah. We're sitting on 3 offers. Different negotiating strategy, as opposed to, the house has been on the market for 45 days, just fell out of escrow, we got no activity. So as a listing agent, just be careful what you share, unless I'm calling you. Tell me everything. And if there are buyer, you're trying to put them in the best position possible. So if so, would you mind sharing what you can? And I let them know my goal is to help your seller get the best deal possible. I hear this all the time. I can't share any of the terms of the other offers because it's not fair to the other agents and other agents out there. I hear it more than you think. Okay. I owe no fiduciary responsibility to any other agent. My fiduciary responsibility is to my seller to get them the most amount of money. And when I come in and tell you I want to beat that last offer that you got, what I'm telling you is I want to help your seller make more money. And then when you tell me, well, that's not fair, just offer your higher and best, and this is a pet peeve of mine, you're potentially leaving money on the table for your seller. We like each other sometimes. We have some ethical commitments to one another, but we don't have any fiduciary responsibilities. And so oftentimes, because if it's my listing and I get written permission from all my sellers to do it, so that's important. But when it's my listing and you call me, if I had $1 for every time an agent said, just thank you for being so candid. I don't want to waste anybody's time here. Okay, thank you for being candid. We're going to yes or no, we're going to do this or make an offer or not. But if you call me, I'm going to tell you, we got 3 offers. The best offer is this amount, this money down, close of escrow, this and that and that and that, because maybe you're going to help my seller make more money. sometimes I have to educate agents on this, and sometimes they get a little mad at me. But if they aren't as forthcoming, then I'll play this little game. Okay, so we know that the house was listed at 400. Okay, you don't want to tell me. With 400, what would happen if you received an offer from me for $405,000? Yeah, that's probably not going to do it. Okay, great. What if it was 408? Yeah, that's now we're in the ballpark. Now I can go back to my buyer and say, hey, I bet we could probably make 410 work.
And I think it's a lot of this, like you had said, is experience level on negotiating, in having transactions, working through this process, because agents just don't know what they can and can't do. But you did hit it. You need to make sure you're getting your seller's disclosure in writing that you are able to share that information when an agent does call and ask.
All right, and pretty much this slide is everything that I just said. I'm trying to get them to share the details of the other offers. Sometimes I have to nudge them about their fiduciary responsibilities. One of the other questions: when do we have to respond by? Your other offers. When's your drop dead time and date for terms of acceptance and so forth? Don't be afraid to give a short response time. If they're saying, "Hey, it's Friday. We're reviewing all offers Sunday at 5:00," I don't care. I'm gonna give your seller till tomorrow at 8 to respond. You now have that fiduciary responsibility to present that offer. I do not mind my seller grabbing a great deal on Saturday, as opposed to waiting for all the other offers to come in. But that is at my seller's discretion, whatever they want to do, and so forth.
Yeah.
All righty. Then once
Is that Justin
That
Frederick?
is Justin Frederick. This is a PowerPoint presentation I did for my team, who we have a relationship with Justin Frederick, so he has no idea that we're doing this right now. But once you get off the phone, I text Justin or who was ever on his team that is working with that specific client. I need you to call this agent on behalf of our buyer. I send them the listing. I provide any details that I've learned. I want Justin and his team, or your lender and their team, to make the case for your buyer. And oftentimes when a listing agent is tight-lipped and won't share as much information with me, I find it amazing on what they will share with the lender.
Yep.
And so our lender teams, they're trained to find out, hey, what's it going to take? We got 3 offers on this deal. What's it going to take? Oftentimes, my lender's the only lender that's called of the 3 offers and so forth. So it's not enough just to have your lender call. They need to have their marching orders, and they need to have their goals.
Yeah, and again, this is all built around one client putting an offer on one listing. This is a lot of work, but it doesn't take a lot of time once you systemize it and once you get your team working the way that you want them to work. I think having the lender follow up right after the fact is huge. And like you said, most listing agents aren't going to be prepared for that, and it just adds a level of professionalism that your offer is bringing to the table. They're going to want to work with you in this group of people because they know if the transaction gets difficult, you guys are going to get it done.
All right. This is just going to help you out. A verbal acceptance is not binding. I've had a lot of listing agents call and say, hey, congratulations, our seller is going to accept your buyer's offer. Go ahead and tell your buyer they got a deal. Unfortunately, my seller's out of town and they're not going to be able to sign until tomorrow morning. I will never make that call to my buyer.
Yeah.
I will never. If it's not in writing,
Correct.
We don't have a deal, because bad stuff happens.
Yes.
Between Sunday late afternoon and Monday morning. And the last thing you want to do is tell your buyer, yeah, we got a verbal acceptance. And then the next day, hey, just FYI, after we got off the phone, my seller got another offer that's better and we took it. That is the worst call. So my rule of thumb: verbal acceptance means absolutely nothing, and I honestly won't even share that with my buyer, because negotiations don't stop till once you have an accepted contract. Did you have anything to add to that?
Not to that one, no.
Okay. All right, you're the process manager. So this is the other part. And again, everything that I just, almost all of these slides, these are the things that I'm explaining to my buyer when I'm doing my buyer consult. This is how I negotiate. I bring other proposition values to the table. But when you explain your process, and they feel incredibly comfortable with your negotiating skills, and you are going to have a conversation about negotiating the compensation to and negotiate with the seller to get them to pay for it or contribute as much as you can to it when because these slides were kind of done a while ago. When you're explaining all of this to your buyer, it's a lot easier to get them to feel comfortable about signing the buyer broker agreement.
Oh, yeah.
Because now when you say you're great at negotiating, they know what that means. And I don't think I have it. We'll see what I got else in the slide. All right, but you're the process manager. So you're managing egos, emotions, the entire process, and people's pride. We see it on Facebook, okay? Keep your emotions in check. I have worked with some of the dumbest agents out there. And sometimes people work with me and go, that guy's the dumbest agent, okay? It doesn't matter how frustrated I am with that agent, how inexperienced that agent is. My goal is to get the buyer to the finish line.
Yep.
And when you go on Facebook and you start griping about this recent deal and this agent's an idiot, that agent may see it.
Yep.
And that could create problems. So sometimes we have to bite our tongues and swallow our pride.
This is a really big one, and this is what most of the time makes or breaks these transactions. You want to win, and that's what the mindset that a lot of agents have going in. They want to win the negotiation. They want to win the transaction. That is not the correct mindset. You want your clients to win, both clients, not just yours. Everybody needs to have a little bit, but your goal is to walk through this with as little ego as possible. And almost every time someone's getting mad in a transaction, take a step back. It's 99% going to be an ego thing.
All righty, and your buyers, again, explain the process to the buyers. This is going to, I guarantee you, when you internalize this, and I'd go back and I would watch this again and write down the points, but this will differentiate yourself. And again, it'll be easier to have the buyer-broker discussion. The one thing that's missing in all of this, and I should go back and edit this, is the explanation of the home inspection process. Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, you've got 10 days. We are going to get the home inspection as quickly as possible, but we're going to wait until the very end to send that Binzer to the seller, and this is why. The longer the house sits off the market, the more and more that the seller is willing to accommodate and negotiate. And we go through a big explanation of that. And
the one thing here, as we're going through all this stuff, it's a lot of negotiation. It's a lot of things that a lot of agents aren't thinking about. So to focus on negotiation solely, if you feel like your negotiation skills are a little low, we have coaching, we have teams, but there's also a fantastic book that I would recommend to every agent. Never Split the Difference is one of the best negotiating books I've ever read. There's a lot that are out there. They are important things for you as an agent to be good at.
I thought you were going to say the 21 Habits of the Highly Effective Real Estate Entrepreneur.
No, I didn't want to steal Todd's.
Authored by Mike Weinstein.
Oh, that's right.
That's my. Oh, you don't even remember? Oh my gosh!
I have two copies. If anyone wants to sign one, I'll sell it to you.
If you make money off of that, you are the best negotiator of all time. All righty, so we leave you with the quote of the day. Walk in beauty so that all may be beautiful around you. I am Haley. You have got to stop with these quotes that would normally never come out of my mouth.
I love this one. This is perfect when you talk about negotiation and dealing with people. Positive mindset, things will be positive around you. Love that.
You're beautiful, man.
I know.
All right. Appreciate everybody joining us today. Go out and sell a home.